Started, Ben?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for meeting with us. I realize that it's been a little bit last minute and we're all very busy, so we appreciate you taking the time to be here. As you know, the work group was invited to make a second round of comments by last Wednesday, and many of you made additional comments, and we wanted to share those final recommendations with you before sharing our final report with the commissioners next Thursday. So we wanted to give you an additional opportunity to make any final comments. So we'd like to review the current recommendations and comments. We'd like to give you an opportunity to discuss them, and then we'll go over the next steps. Jean Marie?
Okay, so starting with recommendation number 1, which is we're in the pre-acquisition phase with this recommendation. Nothing has changed except we added one more to the bottom. So this is the report that's going to go to OHCQ, and we will be copying the Office of the Attorney General as well as the Secretary of Health. And you guys can see all the metrics that haven't changed. What is new is letter G. Stacy, can you do the next slide?
Yeah,
Okay.
I think I'm on it.
Can we
Okay.
pause? Can we pause here for a minute on the fines and payments? What was the rationale for that?
Right, so the rationale is if you look at our current acquisition form, there's already a question on the form that the applicant has to attest to. It's actually number 11, that there hasn't been any penalties in excess of $10 million. So this is something that we are already looking at and checking, and I just thought it would be a good idea to formalize it here as something that we would be checking going forward.
Are you taking questions?
Yes.
Yes.
I'm just going to make an observation that this is going to be literally a tsunami of information, because nearly every nursing home that I've ever worked with has at some point a civil money penalty. Even you can get them for the most minor infractions. Also, you can get a denial of payment for new admissions for not passing your first revisit, but still, it can be a timing thing in terms of it's just part of the normal process. It doesn't bespeak a kind of troubled facility. Every facility in the country is not perfect all the time. And I'm just suggesting to you that this is not a metric that indicates a troubled facility, but it is also one that is just going to create enormous workload.
Okay. Does anyone else have any comments about that?
Devanne has her hand up.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, I had my hand out. Somebody
Well,
can
that's
go
okay. Joe, you're welcome to go first. I can wait.
Oh, I apologize. I didn't see the other hands. Yeah, no, I agree with what Howard said. I mean, so some of the things to consider are a financial threshold or final adjudication of a fine. Sometimes fines are reversed. Yeah, so just some things to consider on fine amounts or final adjudication of a fine, because fines and citations are often won on appeal. So just some things to consider. I agree with what Howard said.
Thank you. Devanne?
I was just going to add that I understand what Howard and Joe just said. However, if this is left in, this would be helpful when there's very serious issues, immediate jeopardy situations, things like that. So I support adding this, and I know that the people that will be reviewing this will be able to look at all of the things that Joe and Howard referenced, from the beginning to the end, from when it was levied, and then appeal rights and all of those sorts of things.
Really good points. I agree with those.
Thank you. Ann McKay, are you putting your hand up?
Yes, I just wanted to comment on the addition of the fines. I think that's fine. I think that I have done quality assurance in nursing homes for several years back in Minnesota. And there's many facilities that never get fines or payment denials. And I think family members and consumers need to know what facilities have that type of situation. Just part of transparency.
Thank you.
So, Jean Marie, this is Ben Steffen. We do collect this information currently. Is that correct?
Right, we do. So the applicant attests to it on the acquisition form, but there is a threshold already there, and it's 10 million, which is quite high of a threshold. And then, just in reviewing these over the last several years, we've never reviewed one that was anywhere close to that amount. So there already is a threshold that's there and in place, and it is already information that we're looking at. I just wanted to not leave it out of the sort of comprehensive picture when we're looking at these acquisitions.
There are
Thank
no more hands up, Jean Marie. There's no more hands up.
Oh, okay, great. All right, the next recommendation is Stacy, can you?
Yep.
Do the slide? Okay, so the next one is one that I believe was not controversial, so I'll just stay here for a moment. But this one is about the update of activities, the Maryland Healthcare Commission update of activities. This is our report that goes to our commissioners every month. And so we have been placing a blurb when these acquisitions come in to keep our commissioners informed, and we will continue to do that. We will also include the report and recommendation if we have it written already. Okay, next slide. Okay, this one is a brand new recommendation, and it came from the feedback that we got actually from several people in the work group, and this was all about transparency for the residents and their families and making sure that everyone is being notified. So I'm gonna because it's new, I'm just gonna take a moment just to read it through. The seller shall notify all residents and their families of the pending acquisition. The acquiring entity shall include the notice in the acquisition transfer of ownership of a comprehensive care facility. It'll be a new question on the form. It'll be number 17 on our form. The response shall include the date and the method that the notice was shared. The state ombudsman and the office of the attorney general shall be copied on the notice of the acquisition.
Joe DeMattos, you have your hand up?
Yeah, just a quick clarifying point. Again, I think that transparency in this sense is really good. Those of us who work in the sector receive calls from family members on a fairly regular basis. Many times when we receive those calls from family members who are not informed, it's because, for instance, there are several siblings or a spouse, and the partner or spouse is the designated family member at the nursing home or the assisted living center or in the other setting, or one of the siblings is that representative, but the person calling to complain is not the registered appointed representative. So you just have to be aware of that catch-all family phrase can be problematic because you could have a spouse or partner that is the designate, or you could have one child or one sibling that's the designate, but the other children and other siblings are not. So it's kind of important to acknowledge that. We get calls all the time to try to bring families together on that. When we dig in, we find out, oh, Ms. Smith, you weren't notified because your sister is the designated representative, not you.
Thank you.
Tracy?
So, Joe, how would you resolve that? Because you are going to have interested family members that aren't necessarily the designated contact with the facility, but they're still interested parties. So how do you get past that with the notice?
Yeah, I think Tracy, really good point. I think that's rough because a facility will have records on how to contact a designated individual, but they won't have records to contact the other folks or permission by the person receiving care. Howard, do you have any thoughts on, on how you would intersect something like that?
Yeah, I agree completely with what Joe's saying. I would just suggest it would be, and it's typically the case in regulatory environment, it would be residents and their responsible parties. Because nursing homes know who to contact, and that may be somebody who is responsible alongside of a competent resident, if that's the designation of the responsible. But we do are involved in having.
Delegate Kerr, you're on the, Delegate Kerr, you're.
I would just suggest that the language of the recommendation be changed to say notice to the residents and the responsible parties.
Could you, is there, I know, so you have like the designated person, is there a second in case that person is not available underneath as well? That's all I'm
Well,
sort of trying to figure out.
Well, that's why the phrase responsible party as opposed to.
Okay,
So for example, if there's a designated person, you know who to go to, but then there is, under the Healthcare Decisions Act, there's a surrogate
Oh.
maker hierarchy. So there's a process for identifying who's responsible.
oh, got it. Okay, thank you.
And Stevan said for the slide, you could change the language to the resident representative when appropriate. Thanks, Stevan. All right. Ann McKay?
I just wanted to mention that the putting the designated responsible person makes sense, but also the facility has other ways to communicate with family members. Many have with the family councils, many have email lists or newsletters. So I think that the word can get out to siblings and other interested parties of a patient if the nursing home has those communication systems in place.
Thank you. See any other hands up? So the items in red are new comments since the last time we met. The Ombudsman Office suggested that we also copy them on the MHCC report and recommendation, and we are going to add that to our recommendation. And the star rating has been impacted by the pandemic, and this is related to the annual surveys. So we continue to be aware of this ongoing issue, and we plan to review the quality metrics as part of the CON process in the new year. Updating that state health plan for nursing homes is a top priority for MHCC in the upcoming year. And then there were some older comments that there should be outreach to residents and families when there is a sale to improve transparency. We just went over the recommendation that we added. So are there any further comments on those first three? Move on to number 4. I see something in the chat. Okay, Winnie Hawk said, could it be posted in a facility? I guess that's probably a possibility. And just a reminder that there is a federal crime to violate HIPAA. Okay. I don't see any additional hands up, so I'll move on to recommendation 4.
Okay, recommendation 4 remains mostly the same. The only thing that we changed, as you can see here in red, it says 3 years. Prior, we said 2 years. The thought process behind making it 3 years instead of 2 is that we could get a more complete picture if we had a little bit of a longer time frame of the facility and the progress. So that was the idea for stretching it out 3 years as opposed to 2. I will pause here for any comments or concerns.
Thank you, Winnie. I see your chat. You were talking about the previous slide. Thanks. Anybody? I don't see any hands up, Jean Marie.
Okay. The next one is it's the same recommendation, just continued. We didn't add any new, oh, we did add new. Okay, so for the first one, we had progress towards reduction of multiple bedrooms, and what is new there is that it is now a detailed plan and progress toward reduction of multiple bedrooms. For number E, that's a whole new metrics that we added, ratio of direct care staffing FTEs to patients. G is also new, maintenance of occupancy levels, and H is new, percent of hospital admissions and readmissions.
Howard Summers.
So I'm really proud of myself for figuring out how to raise my hand virtually. Second of all, couple of comments. First of all, I had made an earlier suggestion that you talk to somebody with an accounting background about the difference between net operating revenue and net income. I just think it's a confusing reference, because an overlapping reference. The other is that I would request that the reference to direct staffing and be tied to the licensing process. Maryland OHCQ has a definition of staffing ratios for purposes of the 3.0 and to which staff are counted and how they're counted. I just don't, in terms of opening the door to a parallel conversation about what is total direct care staffing FTEs when there is already an OHCQ process for defining staff. There should be a common metric across the state agencies.
Yeah, we did, just in response to that, we did define the direct care staffing, and we used the definition that came from CMS, from actually the payroll-based journal handbook, so that we were using the same one because we plan to validate the information that's given to us with using that PBJ data. So we did use that same definition to try to, eliminate some of what you're talking about, Howard.
Right, it's good that you're cross-referencing. I would also suggest you look at the state definition in terms of hours of bedside care per licensed bed, because I don't think PBJ is a bed. Maryland's has a robust state licensing requirement in terms of ratios of staff, but hours of bedside care, I don't think it's a feature of PBJ.
Thank you.
I would concur with Howard on that point.
Joe Dementos.
Yeah, I would concur with what Howard said, and I appreciate what Jean said about using PBJ data. There are a lot of differences between various federal definitions and state definitions. One of the problems with the proposed federal staffing rule that is currently under review is that it does not include, for instance, licensed practical nurses, which are amongst the backbone of the sector, along with certified nurses aides. So Maryland, I think PBJ definitions are incredibly appropriate, and I'm glad you used them. I agree with Howard that we should also augment that with Maryland's state requirements, because Maryland, not only in addition to the ratios and the minimum staffing per occupied bed, but it also includes circumstances in which care extenders may be counted. So I think that's really important. Just a general point about this slide. I'm a little bit concerned. And a question. I'm concerned about sort of duplicative government reporting, because all of this exists somewhere now. It's just now we're consolidating it here. for this purpose. So I'm always concerned about duplicative sort of use of existing data. But just a point of question, this deck only reflects what we most recently brought up, right? Because I don't see a lot of the concerns that I or Bob Kramer brought up earlier, you know, about sort of the future. So just a point of clarification, this is just the new stuff, right?
This is based on the comments that the work group submitted. So anyone who submitted anything in writing to us.
Just recently, as opposed
Correctly,
to,
right,
as
not,
opposed to our previous discussions, my comments, Kramer's comments, anybody's
Right.
comments, right?
right, those are in the minutes, but we use the comments that were submitted.
I guess my question then would be, well, I'm good. We'll just go on, move on.
Yeah, I think.
I think you want to know whether or not the comments that you previously made were taken into consideration with coming up or framing these recommendations, correct, Joe?
Yeah, and that they'll be, you know, included, because I mean, I have genuine, I hopefully I've come off in this process as objective and subjective situations and trying to both be a resource for all of us, the way all of you have been, while still being a truthful advocate for the sector. I'm kind of proud of the way I've showed up and the way everyone has shown up. I think this has been really good work. But getting to the crux of it, I think that one of the implications of the mergers and acquisitions boom of the last couple of years is that in some point in the future, we're going to see somewhat of a bubble. And I've spoken to that, and Kramer has spoken to that. And so I don't want what we do to make it difficult to respond for the benefit of consumers if there is a bubble, and some of these people that acquired over the last 3 or 4 years, unlike the people that have been in the business for 30 years, 40 years, slow and steady, that those people exit the market, that we don't make it difficult for consumers when that bubble bursts to allow the transfer of ownership and sales, right? So I don't think I can say it any more clearly than that. I'm concerned that we tie our hands if there's a bubble 2 or 3 years from now. That's all. And I want to make sure that's reflected.
The recommendations that we have here are cumulative. They're not just the new stuff. They are cumulative, and these are the recommendations that we plan to present next week to the commissioners. If there is a gaping hole somewhere that you feel that we have missed, this will be the time to bring it up.
Okay, thank you.
So I just wanted to respond to the point about the financial reporting, that my vision of that is that most of this would be information that is already reported to Medicaid, most likely. This has the flavor of a Medicaid cost report to it to some degree. I know ratio of total direct care staffing it would have to be gathered from someone else, but our intent here is not to send the industry on additional new data gathering, but to consolidate several existing reports that they are already required to submit, that they would submit that information on to MHCC as well.
I appreciate that, Ben.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully this is not something that does not exist.
Yeah, I think that's my point, is most of it exists. Some of it needs to be blended, but I pretty much think all of it exists.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I really appreciate that, Ben. Thank you for that clarification.
Howard Sallins?
Thank you. A couple of things. I agree with Ben, with your point that a lot of this data exists, but I think clearly this is going to make the process in Maryland more rigorous, more lengthy. more of a hurdle, but I don't think that's necessarily not the goal. I mean, this is going to radically change the process in Maryland. So just, it's just a fact, whether and for good reason, for good reason, I can understand why people want to make it so, but it will have that effect. The other point that I want to I'm surprised that the several slides, I know that there are more to come, that summarize comments are intended to be cumulative, because the discussions at the meetings have been productive, transparent, wholesome, and many different voices and positions have been advocated. The slides that summarize the report to summarize comments are very limited in terms of kind of the voices that are reflected on that in there. So it seems to me that I would just suggest you think about either not having slides identifying comments, but just having the slides talk about what the recommendations are, or reworking the slides to reflect the full range of voices and views that have been expressed throughout the work group. I just don't think, just being candid, that this, I just assumed that these slides summarizing comments were intended for this call to reflect comments received since the last draft was circulated, not cumulative from the outset, because the comment slides candidly don't reflect the fulsome nature of the.
Can I clarify? Can I clarify? When I said cumulative, I meant the recommendations are cumulative. They should encompass as much as possible. The comment slides do have some of the older comments, but they highlight the newest comments because people hadn't seen them yet. I'm not clear about that.
So think about, I saw the slides as helpful for purposes of this call.
Yes.
And to the extent that
The comment
there will be a
slides are.
slide deck that goes to the commissioners.
This is not the slide deck going to the commissioners. This was for this
Thank
call,
you.
and the comment slides were to highlight what's brand new. Is that clear? Sorry, I wasn't clear about
How's this for an additional emoticon?
that.
Is that a hand clapping?
I think so. Or
All
a
right.
wave, maybe? I'm not sure.
All right. Thumbs up.
Okay. Okay. Sorry, I wasn't clear about that. So yes, this is mostly to highlight what's brand new since the entire group has not seen the brand new comments.
Thank you.
Okay. Tracy. You're on mute, Tracy.
So I just wanted to point out, I know this is for purposes of here, but the detailed plan and progress toward reduction of multi-bed rooms. So that language to me is still a little bit vague. I think we do need some more specificity, especially when we're thinking about legislation, and you can't just say, we'll build it out in regulation, because this is so kind of, again, broad or vague. You have to have some sort of specificity around it. And I just think we just need to sort of think about what that could be, to be a little more precise in that language. That's all.
Thanks. Marsha Boyle.
Hi, thank you. I just want to understand everything in red here that we've been talking about that are the new comments. And you indicated these comments aren't going to the commissioners. What's going to happen to them?
No, this slide deck is not the exact slide deck that's going to the commissioners. This slide deck is
okay,
just
that's fine, but what's going to happen to these comments?
the comments. Do you mean
That
the
are
things?
in red? Are we adding this to,
Yes.
our whole plan?
Yes.
Okay, that's good. That's all I wanted to know. Thank you.
Joe DeMatos.
Yeah, just a really quick comment to back up Tracy's comment. I think it would be helpful to actually break out and have 2 lines on, rather than say 3+ bedrooms, I would say have a line that says 3 bedrooms, and I would have a line that says 4 bedrooms. I don't think they're the same sort of animal. I think they're similar but also dissimilar. So I think in order to move forward specifically with a plan, I would suggest to the group that you have a line for 3+ bedroom rooms and a line for 4+ bedroom rooms.
Thank you.
Joe, with your position, that the facility ought to move faster with the 4-bed rooms as opposed to
I'm still reviewing data on the 4-bed versus the 3-bed. I've been spending a lot of time offline, cross-tabulating sort of anything I can lay my hands on. First of all, they're not all the 4 bedrooms and all the 3 bedrooms are the same, because some have exemptions for the physical footprint, some don't. Some are actually larger than double rooms, some are not. Some are able to be updated in the physical plant, some would require a completely new physical plant. But as I look and sort of like nerd out on all this stuff, I do see initially in the data that there seems to be more of a difference of care on a 4-bedroom versus a 3-bedroom. I'm not quite there yet, but we've been spending a lot of time studying it. And again, it's rough to say all 3 bedrooms or all 4 bedrooms, because they're so different. The sizes are different of the bedrooms, as I say. But it seems like in the early data, while there might not be much difference, like not a statistically valid difference in 2 versus 3, in some of the 4-bedroom centers, not all of them, there seems to be some statistical difference that's notable with regard to the care, but we're looking at all of the other variables as well. So that's my nerded out answer to you, Ben. They're not, yeah, there you go.
Thank you.
I don't see any more hands up. Jean Marie.
Okay, we're still on recommendation number 4. This is a long one, so I believe this is the last slide on 4. The first change here in red is that we already spoke about this, that the follow-up report, we will go out for 3 years after the acquisition date. So we spoke about that prior. And then at the bottom, 2 new bullet points. The first is that the commission will use its existing authority to impose monetary fines for non-compliance. And the second bullet point being the nursing home acquisition follow-up report shall be shared with the Office of Healthcare Quality and the Office of the Attorney General. So I'll pause there for any feedback anyone has.
Tracy.
So for bullet 2, where it says failure to comply with the provision of this information will result in having to appear before the commission. I mean, shouldn't this one also include that a penalty could be, a monetary penalty could be imposed here? Because I don't think going before the commission is a real, I don't think it's a penalty. It's not some sort of a penalty or
It
whatever.
is.
Okay.
Or you think it? I don't really. I mean, it's
You're
just
saying
appearing
the second bullet point, Tracy?
Yeah, that maybe you can clarify. You have to appear, and monetary penalty could be imposed as well.
Well, yeah, I mean, Tracy, I think it's all there. The commission will use it to impose monetary fines for non-compliance.
Stevan?
I meant to add this in my comments, but if the last bullet about who it will be shared with, if the ombudsman program could be added to that, that would be very appreciated.
Thank you. I do not see any more hands. So there were, these are a few of the comments that we've received. And I think we've gone over most of this, but older comments suggested that we add several metrics, and we did add several metrics that Jean Marie just went over. And there was also a comment that we should be more specific about asking for progress toward reducing multi-bed rooms. So we added that they need to give a detailed plan as well, but now we have additional feedback that it should be broken up by 3-bedroom versus 4-bedroom, if I captured that correctly. And is there anything else before we move on to recommendation 5?
They're just making clear that this is an example of the kind of slide we were talking about before. For our
Yeah.
purpose versus the other, just.
Yes.
We're on the same page. Thanks.
Yes. Okay, so
Okay, so now we're talking about the statutory changes for the Maryland Healthcare Commission. This one is the one that talks about the aligning the certificate of need reviews with the the acquisition reviews with the CON quality standards for the acquisitions. So there's no changes to that one. Next slide. I don't think there's changes to any of these statutory ones. The second one is now it's 30 days and we're gonna have 45 days now. There was a recommendation for 60 days, but we think we're able to get the work done in 45. So we left it at the 45, so kind of in the middle of the two. Next slide. And then this is the one where we are gonna look at the commission's authority to reduce or eliminate the number of multiple bed rooms within 3 years from the acquisition date. And as we spoke of before, these transitions shall be incremental and implemented with appropriate planning. So no changes, but I will pause to see if anyone has anything for those. I think there's one other statutory one. The one for the Office of Attorney General. So next slide, Stacy.
well, okay, so as Jean Marie said, that we didn't make any changes to recommendations 5 through 7. But I want to reiterate the issue with annual surveys and OHCQ, how we are aware that it's affecting the star rating, and we're going to review the nursing home state health plan in the new year. And other than that, are there any comments or further questions? Okay. I don't see anything.
Okay, recommendations 8 and 9, policy changes for other agencies. We have here one for OHCQ and one here for the Office of the Attorney General. Neither of these are new, but again, I'll pause to see if anyone has any additions to those questions or comments.
Tracy?
For number 9, we don't have the language quite worked out yet, but we do have some information from the Attorney General's office that I think we can make this a little more specific, if you will.
Stevan, can you clarify? I believe you asked for the ombudsman to be included in recommendations similar to number 9. Are you able to talk any more about that?
So in other states, state ombudsmen are involved in this process from beginning to end. And I don't think there is a need. I think it's within our authority to be involved. And so that's sort of what my comment was back, related to this report, is that we can, because we're in the facilities more than anyone, the ombudsman program is, that I think we can give input related to ownership changes if we have that information. And so, however, if the MHCC or the commission wanted us to provide more information about why we would do that, how we would do that, authority questions, et cetera, I'm happy to look into it. So that's, I don't know if that answers what you were looking for, Stacy, but that's kind of what my thought was.
Thank you. Other, Anna Palmisano.
Thank you. You know, I still have concerns about OHCQ's role. I'm currently involved in discussions with OHCQ's director and their council and the Office of the AG, HEAU, all of them saying that OHCQ is a complaint-driven, those are direct quotes, complaint-driven agency. So I'm not sure how that conducting a full survey fits into their complaint-driven framework. And I just want to make sure that someone from the commission is talking to OHCQ to make sure that, yes, they have signed on to do this, because I'm having doubts based on the current discussions I'm having. Thank you.
I know Heather Reed is on the,
For a second.
she may want to comment.
The only comment that I can say about this, these child surveys is this, requirement was an unfunded mandate. We didn't get any positions, we didn't get any funding to do these surveys. So these surveys are currently not being done.
Well, I think we need to clarify this for the commission, because I think there's sort of, you know, unrealistic expectations built. And so much of this depends on having an agency that's going to provide oversight. Everything that we've worked on is built on that. Thank you.
Tracy.
I would just want to make the point that it is a recommendation, and it is currently in statute that the OHCQ is required to do this. So I would just make my point that it is a recommendation.
Also, I believe it was in the last work group meeting we had, Senator Beidel mentioned that she requested funds be added to the next budget to be able to fund this, because she was made aware of the same issue. Are there any further comments about this? So we've already discussed what's on this next slide, so I'm going to skip forward. So we are presenting the work group's recommendations to the commission next Thursday. And then the next step will be to submit a report to the legislature by January 2nd. And we've gotten some good feedback here that we will see if we can incorporate as much as possible to accommodate as many points of view as possible. Gary Atman.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for all the work related to this report. And just had a comment just to follow up to something that Joe DeMatos mentioned, which is that there is as an operator, there's a significant difference between a 3-bedroom and a 4-bedroom. So wherever we mention 2+ bedrooms, it might make sense I would recommend that we consider distinguishing a 3-bedroom from a 4-bedroom. Just one other comment related to a reduction in any rooms that might occur is that I think the concept of compensation has to be brought into that discussion. It's not for now, but if we can fit it into this report, that would be great. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anything else? Ben, did you want to say anything to wrap things up?
Well, first off, I want to pause. Are there any other comments that anyone wants to make before I close us out? Hearing none, I want to thank all the work group members for really their attention for over the last I guess it's been almost 7 months now that we've worked on this. I think we've come forward with some consensus-driven recommendations. I appreciate the comments today, and staff will take into account those ideas. I think some of them are very, very helpful. And stay tuned. The commission meeting will be a week from today, and we'll present the findings from it. I'll be interested to hear our commissioner's reaction. I want to thank, we do have one commissioner attending, Commissioner Boyle. Thank you for your attention throughout. And I also want to thank the elected leaders who have attended this this work group. You know, it's honest to say that sometimes we add legislative elected officials. Oftentimes their schedules do not permit them to attend. But this time I know that Senator Bidel, Delegate Rosenberg, Delegate Kerr have been really with us throughout. I want to thank them for their participation, as well as all the members of the work group. Thank you very much. I think we've made some progress, and I look forward to moving these ideas forward, both through our commission and with the legislature in the 2024 session. Thank you, and have a nice day.